Girls, and welcome to today's Read Aloud. Today I have kind of a special story for you, and it is called Author, A True Story by Helen Lester. And so you might wonder why I have Tacky the Penguin over here and all the Tacky books and Listen Buddy and just all the different books that I've read by this author. This is actually a autobiography. It's a picture book about how Helen Lester became the author of all those wonderful books. Okay, so this is called Author, A True Story, Helen Lester. So it's about how she became a author. Author, A True Story by Helen Lester. For Robin, my husband and best friend. So she wrote it for her husband. A long time ago, there lived a 3-year-old author, me. I was the best grocery list writer in the world and a huge help to my mother. Did you really write? She didn't really know how to write, huh? No. Let me see if this helped. Nope, that didn't help at all. Let's see if this helps. There we go. When I wrote a word, I knew exactly what it said. And the fun part was that I could turn each list upside down and the word said the same thing. I think I made hundreds of these useful lists for my mother, and she never once said, "No, thank you, dear, I have enough." Look at her mom. She's hidden behind all the lists. So did she really write a list, boys and girls? No, because she was only 3, and she didn't really know how to write. But yet she loved it, and her mom loved that she was doing any kind of writing, and that's where writing begins, remember? Begins with pictures and scribbles and whatever you can do. So if you have little brothers and sisters, let them do some lists. Then I went to school and learned to make what they called real letters. My writing was the prettiest in the class with straight lines and round lines. It was perfect. And it was perfectly backwards. Oh no, look. His story says, my story is about a cow. My story is about a horse. And hers is all backwards. My story is about a pig, but it's written completely backwards. We don't write from that side to that side. We write from this side to this side. I didn't just mix up B's and D's like most little boys and girls do. That's easy to do because they look so much alike. My letter started at the wrong side of the paper and marched across pretty as could be and backwards. There's a name for somebody with this problem. I was a mirror writer. My teachers had to hold my work up to a mirror to understand what I had written. Oh no, boys and girls, that's crazy. See, I told you everybody's brain thinks differently. Thanks to a lot of help, I was finally able to write in the proper direction. But writing stories was so hard for me. Often I couldn't come up with a single idea, and my stories got stuck in the middle, and I couldn't think of a title, and I had trouble making the changes my teacher wanted me to make, and I lost my pencils, and I wondered why I was doing this, and I got very frustrated. So I spent a lot of time dreaming about what I wanted to be when I grew up. So she didn't really like to write at all, did she? No. Since no one from the circus ever came looking for me, I became a teacher. I learned that teachers do not live in schools, eating only crackers and milk and sleeping under their desks. Is that what you guys think? I also learned that teaching was fun and that children have fantastic imaginations, so my favorite subject to teach was writing. And you guys do. You guys have amazing imaginations. One day a friend said, "You should write a children's book." And I thought, I spent 10 years in 2nd grade, so I know a child from a chicken. Maybe I should. So she taught 2nd grade for 10 years. And she knows children from chickens. I went right home and wrote a book. It was the best book I had ever written. Of course, it was the only book I had ever written. I illustrated it with my nicest drawings and proudly sent it to a publisher. Lucky people, I thought. The lucky people send it back and said, "No, thank you." That's called a rejection. I decided I'd never write again. Oh no, she was rejected. They sent it back and said, don't want it. Until the next day when I felt better. I wrote a second book and sent it to a different publisher. The second book publisher sent the book back and said, "No, thank you." I decided I'd never write again until the next day when I felt better. I wrote another book and another and another and another. Practice must have helped each story get a little better for on my 7th try. No book came back. Just a "yes, please." That's called an acceptance. I was beside myself with joy and excitement. It was the first author, I was the first author I had ever met. And so she was happy. I drew the picture for my first book and I did the pictures for this book, but I usually work with an illustrator who has been to art school and who can draw bicycles and refrigerators and pigs. This talented person draws what I would if I could. My pig? Oh, and check it out. It's our pig from Me First. My illustrator's pig. So this is what her pig would look like. And this is what the illustrator's pig looks like. Because just because you're an author doesn't necessarily mean that you're also a good artist, right? And just because you're a good artist doesn't mean that you like to write. So there are people that will illustrate your books for you. So here I am, an author, and every time I sit down to write, perfect words line up in perfect order and whoop, a perfect book pops out of the computer. Bingo! Well, not exactly. Sometimes, she was only kidding you guys, that's not what happens. Well, not exactly. Sometimes writing stories is so hard for me. I can't come up with a single idea and my stories get stuck in the middle and I can't think of a title and I have trouble making the changes my editor wants me to make and I lose my pencil and I wonder why I'm doing this and I get very frustrated. So see, even older people get frustrated with writing and they've been doing it for a long time. But that's sometimes. I love it best when ideas are hatching so fast I can barely write them down. I grab the nearest thing to write on and get so excited I forget what I was doing in the first place. The ideas that come in the middle of the night are hard to read the next day. Oh my goodness, look at that. She's brainstorming. Not all of the ideas are useful. I keep a whole box full of fizzled thoughts and half-finished books. I call it my fizzle box. Whenever I need an idea, I can go to the box and find wonderful things. Just the name I needed, a funny word, a wise lesson. So she keeps it because she can still take things, even though they didn't turn into stories. Maybe she used some really cool words in it, some really cool names, and some really cool lessons that she was trying to teach on the reader. Like right here, it says Felicity Brickhead. That's kind of a funny name. And Wubblefutzer. That's a really funny word. And then it says, never comb your feathers backwards. That's a lesson to be learned. Usually when I first think a book is finished, it really isn't. I keep going over the story again and again, looking for ways to make it better with little changes here and there. I do this until the book has to be printed. Then it's too late to do anything more. And so she has to go over it again and again and again. And remember, boys and girls, when I tell you to write stories, we do the same thing. You have to kind of go over it again and make sure that it looks nice, that things are spelled correctly. You can always kid spell to begin with, but then you really, and you're going to do this a lot in first and second grade, then you really need to go over all the words and make sure they're adult spelled. I used to think that writing had to be done at a special time while sitting at a desk, but slowly I discovered that I could write anytime and anywhere. I especially like to write when I'm bored, because I'm not anymore. Of course, writing anytime, anywhere sometimes means writing on anything, and so she actually writes on anything. In the car, sometimes in the shower, the paper gets kind of wet. Authors are lucky, for they get to meet hundreds of children through letters, school, and library visit, and at autographing sessions. I didn't always like autographing books. The first time I autographed, my table was next to the table of a very famous author. I was not a very famous author. Her line had no end. Look at her line. Mine had no beginning. I'm glad I didn't join the circus. Even though writing is sometimes hard work, it's what I love to do. I never dreamed I'd become an author, so this is better than a dream come true. And boys and girls, what do you think the lesson is in here? I think it is just persevere whatever you want to do, right? If you want to be a clown in the circus and that is your dream job and you want to do that, you have to work hard and you have to persevere just like she did. Was it easy for her to become an author? Oh no, she was rejected many, many times. But the one thing that she didn't do that people that don't realize their dreams do is she never gave up. And so you have to be able to get rejected and, have a book be turned down, but then just do it again. If that's really what you want to do, never give up on your dreams. I hope you enjoyed the book.